there's creativity and there's the work you put behind it. When you mix creativity and the work you put behind it, then you have an artwork, then you have a piece, whatever it is, painting, sculpting, whatever it is, creativity and the work. If you only have the creativity, all you have is your ideas. You know, it's just floating up in the air. This they can also like disappear and never come to fruition. And if you only have the work, you're gonna find yourself maybe copying what you see, or I don't know. I think there's a combination of both when it comes to making artworks. My name is Andres Alvarez, and I'm a New York-based painter. I was born in the Dominican Republic in the province of Santiago, Santiago de los Caballeros. For the past 4 or 5 years, I've been painting a lot of abstract work, focusing on color, shapes, exploring forms. Just like many other artists, I've been drawing painting since I was a child, even though I'm not formally or classically trained in the arts. Art making is something that I have always done. It has always been a part of my life since ever since I was a child, and I just never let go of it. I was always drawing. I was drawing cartoons, movie characters, whatever you put in front of me. It's just something that I always did, and it was very much a part of my life. I didn't really have artistic influences, I would say, even though there were some members of my family that were like artistically inclined, they have ability with the arts and crafts, but it's not something that they did as a career or anything that I could see, that I could reference as an example of something that I could do as a career myself. But I just never stopped doing it. I guess growing up, maybe to frame, to give some context of my upbringing of what of the art environment for where I came from, for the radar to what was available to me. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I experienced at the time in the Dominican Republic. To a middle class family, I don't know. It was art making was not something that was necessarily encouraged. It was I've never heard anybody tell anyone, you should be a painter or it's gonna make you money, it's gonna make you move up socially or economically. It was just about doing regular work, I guess, for the middle class. I think that's the bracket where my family was at because we were not poor. We have food on the table on the table every day, blue collar family. But because of the way schooling is over there, you're made aware the national like pride when it comes to arts. I was familiar with artists like Candido Vidal and Guillo Perez, which who are like icons in the Dominican Republic. They're dead now, but if you were talking about Dominican painters, those were the first things that came up at the time. They painted a lot of like folk life. As a child, at least at that age, you saw a painting, you could recognize pretty much who painted it, just because it was just I don't know. We were not necessarily encouraged to pursue the arts, but we were shown who has who was already established as an artist as a form of like national pride. The biggest Dominican painters of the era. But I didn't really need that type of reinforcement. The only reinforcement that I needed was the ability to have like maybe art supplies, and you just all you need is pretty much a pencil, color pencil, crayons, and you can make some art. But it was never something that I considered that I would be able to do, that I was able to pursue as a like a viable career. Not that when I was that age, I was thinking, about, oh, what career am I going to pursue? Because everybody that was working around me just regular work. Like plumbers, my dad was a mechanic, my mother was a seamstress. You don't really thinking about you're gonna go in, follow the fine arts, the fine art world, or whatever that is, or pursue, go to an art school. I was thinking I'm just gonna do the regular stuff, do regular school, and if I'm lucky, if I play the cards right, I go to regular college, and find a regular job. And that was maybe the extent of my foresight when it came to what I wanted to do when I grew up. You know, but I was always playing around and exploring things. I remember I used to grab the Sunday paper, and I started, just clipping pictures. I like really bright colored pictures. It could be just whatever, car race, photos, F1, but it wasn't because I was necessarily interested in the sport per se. I just like the photography of it, like sports, even cartoons. And I had no plan for these cutouts. I was just cutting stuff out and putting them in a binder somewhere, just storing them because I like the pictures. I like how they look. And this is a child doing this, so I didn't really have, like, I never showed it to anybody. I never showed like my paper clipping hobby with my friends. We didn't talk about art. It was not a thing. So yeah, that was pretty normal. Childhood at the time. I had a great time back then. Um, so yeah, and then when I was about, I want to say 13, 14, when I was in eighth grade, I moved to Puerto Rico with my family, with my mother and brother and sister. And the art thing just continued. I just never stopped. I was always drawing. And in high school, everybody knows that there's an art kid, and you become known for having, an ability. It's pretty much whatever you can use to be let in to the social, some type of social whatever. It's great. So that was, encouragement, because sometimes it will be even a bit of a competition amongst friends. Just who came back to school next day, the coolest, who was drawing the cooler comic book cover or whatever. Once again, I didn't have a big interest in comic books to follow and read the stories or whatever at the time, but I was very interested in the artwork, the cover work. So yeah, I would just subscribe to, not subscribe, but I would buy a Wizard magazine that was kind of the latest news on comic books. And this is me scrolling through pages looking at who's who and who's doing what. And so I was, again, not even thinking about this is something that I would like to pursue. Because for some reason the career mindset wasn't present at the time. I was pursuing curiosity just for curiosity's sake. And some comics just for the artwork. This is how I became familiar with names like, not Stan Lee, but the guy that made Spawn, Todd McFarlane. Then a lot of other stuff that jumping into the periphery. Frank Frazetta, Simon Beasley. So yeah, I did a lot of that in high school. I was also involved in anything that had anything to do with like art making. Sign me up in high school. I remember I did a mural, but this is early 1990s Puerto Rican public school budget mural, which was pretty much maybe like a 4 by 7 piece of wall, and it was on paper because they didn't want to like put paint, so it was like a marker mural. I think it was some type of school trip or whatever. They also had every year they had a basketball competition at different high schools, with basketball tournaments, high school versus high school. So for every year they will have a T-shirt that represented the school for the basketball tournament of that year, and they will like have the students compete for whose artwork will be on that T-shirt for the basketball tournament. So I came in and my design, my artwork got the got awarded that T-shirt, to be in the T-shirt like 2 years in a row. So that's that. I wish I had the T-shirt for that. And also for senior year, they also asked me to design the logo. That would be my senior year graduating class logo. So I also designed that. So at this point, I'm already like dabbling in, typography and whatever. I was just doing art for the sake of making art, and I was super happy to do it. It's just for nothing. We're not getting paid anything, so we just do it because it's fun. Once again, a little bit of recognition. It's kind of like cool for a teenager at the time. So that was cool. But I also remember, like, you think about all this interest in art, like the obvious path for anybody, I guess for most people would be, how about, I go to art school. But I always think back to those days. I was taking this marketing class. I think I took the class. The only reason I got into this marketing program in high school was because I didn't want to take the biology class. Somebody one day just came into the one classroom and said, who's interested in taking a marketing class? They're gonna hook you up and help you how to find a job. Just nobody raised their hands. But when they say, oh, by the way, if you take this class, you take this program, you don't have to take biology class for whatever reason. And I was like, sign me up. I had no zero interest in biology. So let's see what's up that with this marketing stuff is about. But that was cool. So the thing is that after the teacher has seen already like the work that I've been doing for the school, and aside from like the drawings that I kept constantly showing up in school with, she said, "Oh, you're a very good artist. You should be a graphic designer." So I laugh about it because it's like it's not like a direct connection, but I guess that's the best advice she thought she could give me at the time. But this is like a marketing and business teacher, so she gave me like a career sound advice, like graphic designer can actually have a job. But in my brain, like it's like somebody like opened my brain and put like a implanted a chip, and like, yes, this is the thing that I should do, graphic design, because I'm an artist. And that's exactly what I pursued, like consciously or subconsciously. And this is and that's the energy that's surrounding me. I want this, everything that I do from now on should like set me up to have a graphic design career. And that's what I did. But at the time, there were not many options. The only graphic design options was like a couple of hours, public transportation away from where I lived. And that was not, I didn't have a car. So in public transportation is like, forget about it. What I did was like, okay, graphic design math in my little dumb 18-year-old brain, like computers. Let me take a computer science class because if I learn computers, eventually I can use them to do some graphics. And cut to me dropping out of a computer science class like day one, when these people are talking about pre-calculus. Like this is not for me. And I took like, I'm going to like a history major, but obviously I didn't find my place in college. I felt like I was just doing stuff just for the sake of doing stuff. I didn't not if I mean I'm interested in history, but at that time it's like this is not like the thing for me, and I was not into it at all. So after that, I was given an opportunity to come to New York, work for a family member at the time, uh, work at a discount store in the Bronx. That's how that was my in to come from going from the yard to Puerto Rico, from Puerto Rico to New York. So I got this family job opportunity in the Bronx. But and at that time, I was already like deep into what Frank Frazetta did, illustration on Norman Rockwell. I was already like digging in to all of this. So I'm thinking a little, obviously a little naive at the time. When I came, I thought I was gonna come in and I had pamphlets for Parsons. I had pamphlets for whatever school has some type of like graphic design slash illustration, whatever. Look, I just never stopped. I just never stopped drawing. I never stopped making art. Just doing random things. The sketchbook just didn't stop flowing, no matter what else was going on. I had supermarket jobs. I would work at factories or whatever at the time as a teenager, but I was always doing art. It was just something that I never stopped at the time. So I came to New York, and I got hit with the good old reality check that uh, uh, rent has to be paid. Mind you, I come from like, even though I was paying, helping with bills in Puerto Rico, I was living with my mother. So I wasn't really paying rent like that. So I come here fully independent. The the dreams at the time didn't really fit the budget. So I was like, okay, this is the whole Parsons and all that stuff. I'm gonna have to put on hold because this rent is no joke. And I was living in an apartment with like three or four roommates, like all them, everybody's older than me. Everybody's in like the 40s and 50s. I'm 19 at the time, 18, 19 at the time. So this is a major shift, right? So the whole art school and I'm gonna like do this and become an illustrator or graphic designer or whatever, completely on hold. And long story short, on that part of my life is that pretty much everybody knows if you live in New York, big city, time flies by. Something that you put on hold, it's gonna take years. Even though I did at the time, I was still, once again, I was paying attention to once again bring it up Frank Frazetta, and I was very impressed by his understanding of the human body, the human form. I'm both learning the language because I'm learning English as I go at the time. So I'm absorbing this like illustration books and the stories and techniques and all the stuff these people were doing that they were known for. I was just blown away by how good they were at like just depicting the human form. So what I did at the time, I forgot the name of the guy, but he was I guess a art school professor. I don't remember which school, but it was like an older man, I guess past retirement age. He had this studio in Midtown, around 34th Street, around there, where he would give anatomy classes, and you will sign up for his classes. I think it was on weekends, maybe once or twice a week, and it was like very like thorough understanding of the human form, human proportions. This is very this guy comes from a very legit background when it came to that. So I did that for a while until I couldn't because I couldn't keep up with the class fees. But it gave me a very good foundation. Number one, foundation in understanding of the human body, of the value of studying and practicing. And that was one part of it. And just art in general. Art is not just having maybe the inspiration and pick up something and throw it at the canvas. I understood that there's a technical hump that you need to pass, meaning that I'm trying to like be careful a little bit with my words because I don't want to like define what art making is or what art is or what you're supposed to do. This is what applies to me. This is what I understood and still understand at the time. There's creativity and there's the work you put behind it. When you mix creativity and the work you put behind it, then you have an artwork, then you have a piece, whatever it is, painting, sculpting, whatever it is, creativity and the work. If you only have the creativity, all you have is your ideas. You know, it's just floating up in the air. This they can also like disappear and never come to fruition. And if you only have the work, you're gonna find yourself maybe copying what you see, or I don't know. I think there's a combination of both when it comes to making artworks. So back to the subject, I understood that the work part require me to have some technical understanding of materials, of process, certain guidelines that are like very helpful to follow. Not, people like to push back against the concept of art making having any rules because now anybody can just do whatever. But depending on you, if I'm interested, if I'm interested in painting portraits, for example, if I'm interested in painting the figure, it is essential for me to learn the basics of the human body, the facial structure, proportions, um, and yeah, that becomes your skill set that improves the type of work you do. And when you mix that with some creativity, then you start like finding yourself. And that's what I was pursuing. Like, what is the thing that I want to do? So, but I'm doing this in a very scattered way because I'm like guiding myself through what I think I need or through what I think I should learn. And I also hesitate to use the word or define myself as a self-taught artist because everything, pretty much everything that you learn as an artist when it comes to technique came from somebody that or somebody else that either knows more than you, has the classically trained background. If they don't have that classical trained background, they have years on top of years of experience and practice, and they became, a very like well-honed, well-defined artist, and you learn from that. So you cannot really teach yourself something that you don't know. You have to like learn from somebody and then apply it, and then you develop as an artist. So I taught myself how to develop as an artist, but I didn't teach myself how to be, you know, how to be a better how to mix colors, how to combine, this and that, how you use certain materials. You learn all that stuff from everybody else that did it before you, uh, unless you invent something brand new that nobody has ever seen before. But everybody learns from somebody, I believe, and everybody's influenced by by something else, by someone else. So I just kept following that, picking up lessons here and there. Uh, YouTube was not a thing back then. I'm that old. So yeah, I used pretty much looking for books. Use I was my curiosity still to this day for like learning art and techniques has not like slowed down a bit. I'm always exploring and looking at maybe who's doing what, how I'm not well versed, in the names maybe that I should know about academic painters that are like famous. I know some, but I feel like there's a sea of people that I don't know. So every time I find somebody's name or whatever, I like look into that person. So look at their bio, if they're still alive. I like try to listen to interviews so I can hear their perspective on pretty much in general in life. Or I guess we look for something to connect to and everybody. So this is not such a maybe like a lonely pursuit because it's not a lonely pursuit. Uh, so anyway, years passed. I guess art making is still in the back burner. Going to art school is completely out of the question at this point because the whole graphic design plan became reality. And I went to after getting it together with the language. You think my accent is heavy now? You should just listen to me back then. I was really like chopping and screwing the English language. I went to the Bronx Community College for Communication Arts and Graphics Communication, and that's the first time that I felt like I was in the right place doing uh, what I was supposed to be doing. I was learning. I was introduced to Photoshop, Illustrator. I was taught about typography, the value, the composition, and the value of colors. It was still a community college, but I believe that the graphics program was pretty good. The my graphic design Photoshop teacher, Miss Lisa Amowitz, very good teacher. She was very encouraging because I believe that she saw I was always like pushing myself to do things that were not even within the scope of the class. I remember she taught us how to use Illustrator, but if you at that time, I don't know if how it is now. If you're learning Illustrator, the Illustrator program, this Adobe Illustrator, they're teaching you like book publishing and how to keep typefaces or whatever. I was when I was done with all of that, I was doing this crazy type-based compositions that I wish I had to show some type of slide or something. But I was just exploring and just digging into something that didn't have anything to do with the class, but it's just in this one program. Same thing with Photoshop. I'm exploring every single filter there is and then putting together these crazy compositions. So I was always pushing it. Once again, if you push back and you look at this, okay, this guy is headed to some type of like graphic design agency and he's gonna be money making from now on. But at that time, I started looking for work because I was doing part time school. Actually, I was doing full time school, I believe, but I was also working. So it would for me to get financial aid, I had to be full time school, and I had to like make the whole like work thing. I don't even know what I want to say, but it was rough. So I was using work now outside of school. So I started looking for an internship as a graphic designer. And I looked in all the wrong places and I found work. I don't want to say the wrong places because I really appreciate the experience that I had as a graphic designer. What I mean to say is that I don't have a polished background when it comes to design. My first internship was at a print shop in the Bronx. They print like event flyers. I forgot the name of the spot, but I remember the name of the guy that taught me pretty much how to use Photoshop for flyer design purposes and how to use Quark. There was another program used for pre-press production. His name was Clever, Ecuadorian guy, very talented. He designed all the flyers at that time, in that place. So I learned a lot from that guy. At some point, decided to pay me close to nothing, but I knew close to nothing, so I'm not really complaining. Then I got another internship. It was a paid internship at a bigger print spot. So I pretty much just keep going up this graphic design ladder career wise, but it was in this very niche Wild West market of event uh, party promotion, doing street flyers, pretty much, which has nothing to do with graphic design school. It has nothing to do with design studio or agencies. That was like it was just what was there for me. So I pursued that, and I don't know, I enjoyed it. There was a freedom to it because I was by the time I was maybe like 6 years deep. It was just everything I did. That's everything I did during the day. I left school alone. I said, what's the point? Because they teaching me stuff that I already know. So I was very like bored. Plus I was putting in a lot of hours. And the hours that I was supposed to put in school, I was also putting at home doing freelance work. So I'm working at a print shop during the day, doing flyers, CD covers, business cards, you name it, out in the fringes, um, doing flyer party flyer designs. Um, and that was that. And when I got home, I also had like side clients, and that's all I did for many years. We're talking about 15, 20 years, and I was about. And that big, I didn't completely leave art alone. I was still doing maybe graphic design based artworks. I remember I did a lot of digital pieces that I would put online. Um, at that point, I had work on DeviantArt. There was another a website called ShadowNest.com. I was doing digital work, 3D pieces, typography 3D. It was just nonstop. No matter how much work I had already on the computer, I used my side time, my spare time, to do more work. But it was like creating typography based pieces because this is all I did. I really loved it. I remember telling myself at one point, I will never retire from this. I'm like, when I retire, I'm going to do like flyers and stuff when I retire because I love doing it. I don't think people looking from the outside. It's maybe I don't want to make presumptions, but maybe people look down on it because you don't really need to go to learn design theory or any of that to use to make some party flyers. You just do whatever. All you have to do is please the party promoter. But at the same time, it's not as easy as it sounds because these guys are wild. They think that a lot of I don't want to speak ill of the party promoters, but if you're a fly designer, you're a promoter yourself, you understand that that's like a power struggle on who's the creator between the two, between the promoter and the graphic designer, because they can pretty much tell you exactly what to do, whether it looks good or not. But with me, the way I looked at it, I believe built a decent relationship with the people I did the science for because I had fun doing it. I really enjoyed messing with colors because there's not any rules. You can just follow your muse, and if you hate it, if you hate dealing with people, then you're going to hate what you do. And it really taught me how to not be sensitive about criticism, which is something that will help me in the future. It really helped me how to work with different egos or how people see themselves in the creative process. It's like I'm not going to disrespect you because you have an opinion on the design that you asked for because you asked for it. This is you're paying for it. And so this that was my whole mindset, I guess, coping with the times, I guess. But I really enjoyed it. I really had a good time with that. And it's something that I still do it to this day. I have like two or three people that I still like do a couple of designs here and there because I it's number one, there are people that are easy to work with. They're happy with the work that I do, and we have a good interpersonal relationship. There's nobody competing for like who's the creator of the tool. They respect and they know uh, where I come from as a designer, and they know the work that I've done. They know that I what I'm able to do, and they respect that if I put something together, it's because I think it's good. So the reason why I state that is because graphic design played a big part in that curiosity that I have. Because even though it was not something that is considered art, it's not something that you can hang and put on a gallery or something. But it can my creative uh brain it kept my creative brain at constant play. The 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 play with colors and layout for me never stopped, and that really really helped me today with paintings, because it doesn't matter what the subject is, could doing abstract and or doing portraits or you name it. It's not that I'm looking at a flyer. Obviously, it's not that I'm looking at graphic design, but I can see a composition when it's coming together. I can tell in my own work it's this it when something is off balance, or maybe some colors don't not coordinating. And it's because of all those years of me messing and playing and tweaking and pushing and pulling. That is just the way I think. It's just a part of me, I guess. No, that back to the high school teacher advice of you should do graphic design. Uh, that really went a long way in the way things worked out. Obviously, you would like to fantasize and say, "Man, I wish you could have told me I would have gone to like a fine art school and become an illustrator or a studio artist." I thought like that in the past, but not anymore. I really appreciate everything that I learned and experienced, because you learn so much when you like see yourself trying to uh, cater to somebody's vision of what they think is a good idea for something creative. It's like at the beginning it's a little bit of annoying, because it's like, don't you see it that what you're asking me for is not going to work out, because I see it in my head, but at some point I realize, oh no, they don't see it. They have to show it to them, like literally. If I don't do it, they will not like visually put it together. I really became to also to appreciate more that concept of creativity. And it's like that eye that you can see things, kind of like visualize them a little bit before they are. Even when you execute, even if they come out a little different, but you have a vision, you can see as a creative. And that's what's fun about it. Because even though you see it, the outcome is a combination is what you see in your head, and how much of it are you able to execute in the physical world. So back to the importance of learning the technical aspect of maybe painting, whatever it is, because it's like learning to speak a language. You have an idea, but you have to like say it in this new language that you're learning. The more words you learn about that language, the better it sounds, or the better it is when it's put to paper. And that's kind of how I look at it. Obviously, as long as you're having fun with it, and experiment, try stuff out and find out. But then, and going back to the timeline of my creative trajectory, this whole time I'm doing little things on the side, but it was always doing things on the side. I'm like learning this and learning that, but I'm not really. I still have to have a real job, either doing graphics or something. Thankfully, I was always able to have graphics design to be the job that I had, which I love doing. But under obviously different structures, at some point I started doing agency work. Everything shift there. So when I started doing agency work, everything became more serious, because I'm now working for corporations, nothing to do with flyers. I had all the required skills, but my creative instincts were like off the leash completely. So if you have any type of advertisement agency experience, that everything's very constrained. The creative the creative power structure is very defined. If you like under the creative director, it's not up to you. And brand guidelines and all of that rule everything. So it was relatively easy work compared to my background at the time. The money was definitely better. The culture was a little bit tougher for me to deal with, because everything was more corporate, more constrained, and more yeah, more restrictive. So I did that for a few years, and at some point, I realized that, and I took a step back, and it was a mix of things. Uh, and I saw that I was not having fun. I was getting paid well to do this work at the corporate level, but the trade off was it took over my whole life in terms of hours, hours, the level of mental commitment had to be tuned in. Props to the people who were able to navigate those waters and thrive. But it was just not my wiring. It was just not me. And the more I did that, the more on the backseat the whole art thing was. And a combination of that and some big changes in my personal life. I think already had my daughter at the time, and some changes and big changes in on the relationship side of things. I don't know. So at some point, I decided. I guess people are going to relate to this. That there's a point in your life where you realize that you have compromised a whole bunch for others, whether it be family members, whether it be relationships. You find yourself giving in for the sake of having that sense of having a home and being in a quote unquote stable relationship and fitting in that societal aspect of I'm in a relationship, uh, I live with my girlfriend or whatever. And at some point when you see certain things not really like working out, not only not working out, but like making your life a little bit more miserable every day. And I'll speak with myself. I realized that I have given up enough of myself with and none of it made my life a bit better. And I also was like self-aware enough but I knew not to blame anybody else but myself because nobody asked me or nobody forced me to compromise. So the first thing I started to do was start like figuring out what is up with me. And one of the major red lights or red flags that I saw in myself was that I'm not doing the one thing that makes me feel good or makes me feel in the right place at the right time or makes me feel like I'm growing, which is art making. So I started both like working on myself. I started making adjustments in my personal life. And instead of having art being this side piece that I have for a long time, I made it the main thing in my life. Everything revolved around me and how can I accommodate studio time? How can I have the right place? And this is around 2013. I'm already, yeah, not a young buck. So I think that was the best decision I made in my entire life. It was not easy at all because I'm talking about major changes. I moved back to live on my own. I needed to be on my own, and uh, and that's all I did. That's all I've done since explore and make sure I commit myself to nurture the myself as an artist and don't compromise and don't throw my time into the garbage for the sake of compromising for others. And that applies to everybody because everybody in reality is not I'm holding grudges against anybody from my past or my present or whatever because everybody's pretty much trying to do their best to live a decent life. But to most people, the concept of a decent life is very distorted. And sometimes that distortion involves like dragging you in whatever misery they're living. And I could not operate, I cannot be creative, I could not be that curious mind, that inquiring mind, and that forever taking risks, sacrificing time, but within an environment or a situation where like chaos prevails. I need peace in my life, no chaos. And that's pretty much reflected on the work that I've been doing, because I believe that I look back at the work that I was doing back then. There's a reflection of darkness and that chaos. I mean, if you look at my work now, you might think it's chaotic in a way, but I don't look at it like that. I see peace, I see freedom in many ways. I see harmony, and that's where I am with my work now, and I seek to keep pursuing that. I will say that the biggest turning point in my sorry, the mental turning point in my life was right after I had my non art related job. I already talked about my career as a graphic designer. So when I got out of that, I was offered this opportunity to work at a high school. I was offered a job as a teacher at a Bronx high school, and I thought it was a pretty good cool concept to go into a high school. I thought it would be something very meaningful to be part of an art program, and kind of aligned at the time with my mindset of go back to my basics and do art related work, something that got me closer to that. So, but let's just say that what the offer that was put on the table at the beginning to be part of an art department completely morphed by the time I started actually working. The art department got eliminated from the school, which happened all over, unfortunately. But I was still doing something. I was still connecting with the kids in the creative sense, because I was part of a career and technical education program where I was tasked to teach computer literacy. So obviously, I was teaching kids how to use Photoshop, how to like get creative with that. I introduced, because I was putting together the whole curriculum, because it was a new program at the time. So I was creating the curriculum as I went. So I pretty much could put together, ca- tailor the curriculum to my liking, as long as it fit this career and development goal of the program, that of the high school. So I introduced computer literacy. I introduced a sketching class. I had a projects that involved creating logos by creating doing handmade sketches. But at the end of the day, it was a very like mentally taxing experience. I only did it for a year. I learned a lot, so much about myself. I remember that on day one, that when I stood in front of the first class, I think it was ninth graders at the time, maybe 9 or 10 graders. That moment, I realized that public speaking gave me anxiety, and I had never experienced that level of anxiety when you have a room full of students and they zeroing on you, trying to see through you to see what's wrong with you, so they can pick at it, I guess. But it was great. At some point, I had a great relationship with the kids, so it was fun. But on the professional side, it was just it became to be a little bit much more of a handful than I expected, to something that was not something I had planned to be this like all encompassing, like completely involved career, that being a high school CTE teacher, which is career and technical education. It was just too much. And I had absolutely time for do absolutely anything else. So the job was completely everything. So I did that for a year. And when I was done with the school year, I realized that I needed to reset. I needed a big reset. So around the time that I started thinking that, I something came across my Instagram feed about this artist residency in Japan. This very cool program put together by Star for Fusion International. of Fusion World. You can look them up on Instagram. But it was this experience like no other. It was a group of artists, group of creatives. There were dancers, very talented musicians, artists from other countries, painters, uh, different group ages, and we were all in a hotel somewhere inland Japan, this town called Kaga. And it was my very first experience of just living entirely surrounded by just creative people, artists, and a bunch of people that I never met before, like new cultures, new mindsets. So I think that was a shakeup that I needed pretty much. I did that, it was about 18, 20 days, if I'm not mistaken. But it was I was truly immersed in just the experience. It was the first experience of just spending every day and night creating in a studio. That was my first experience doing that, and surrounded by people who are also creatively driven, doing a bunch of cool stuff, a little bit of everything. Videographers, it was everything there. Um, so that was something that I experience that I really appreciated, and also like learning a lot for so many different creative personalities. You learn so much about it, about yourself. And after that, when I came back to the US, I believe I had already applied in different places, but that's when I started pursuing work or jobs that stay parallel to my art pursuit, to my creative pursuit. I didn't want something that was divergent, something that was just to pay the bills. I felt like I had enough of that. I felt like I had done enough of that, and I was willing to take my chances and find that whatever that was. And then mural painting enters the room. Um, I started working from one company to the other in advertisement, commercial mural painting, and the experience. I'm still doing that to this day as a freelancer. And to this, I guess it has been in many ways looking back of all the like lifetimes that I lived, all the jobs that I had, career changes, things that I thought I would do forever, other stuff that I asked myself, why did I get into that type of work? And now looking, no, looking to experience builds perspective. So looking at that and looking at mural painting work now, it is really the most rewarding work I've done in my entire life. In the sense that we're not out there like making pieces of art. This is commercial advertisement work, but I'm painting. I'm out there. I'm using my hands. I'm moving. I'm doing physical labor. And once again, point one, two, three, and four, I'm painting. That's I really enjoy that. I'm playing with color. I'm learning, working with people who have been doing it for decades, and that is a very rewarding type of work, and it's like completely in line with what I do in my studio and the work itself because of the nature of the work. I find myself like wondering, okay, how big can I go with some stuff? How big can I go with this canvas? How big can I go with subjects? I use this color combination today on this job. I wonder how it will look on a canvas and things like that. I use a never ending well of ideas playing in my head. So that I'm really grateful for that for as long as I'm, able to do it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and this new this new aspect, relatively new aspect of my life. I've been doing it for about 5 years, 5 6 years, depending on how you look at the COVID gap. But yeah, 5 6 years. I feel like I've grown a lot as a painter because I don't know if painting is all you do for work and that's the thing passionate about, then you come home new avenues based on what you brought home from work. Not a lot of people get to say that. I can connect it all the way back to the f- flyer design days. I was doing stuff at work that I enjoyed, and I brought some of that home to also do some more of that because I enjoyed it. So so yes, it feels like a little bit of a full circle situation. I haven't really participated in many art shows. I haven't had a solo show of my own. Maybe this year I can make that happen. Putting it out there into the universe. But I have been in a couple of pop up shows here and there. I guess throughout the years, me doing so much experimenting and doing this so called finding my true voice. My work has been doing a constant shift. Style, medium, subject, matter, you name it. I keep moving from one to the next, and I never felt like any. At least back then, I didn't feel like my work was good enough of thing or like high enough in the art quality ranks for me to think about doing shows and all of that. And this is all like made up thoughts in my head. I might probably lying to myself. But always it was a product of not being surrounded, not being, not having that so-called artist community. I wasn't surrounded by other artists or people who could maybe point out, hey, your stuff could be in a gallery or something. I don't know. Not maybe not that I needed it. Maybe when you're young, you need some type of external validation, which I don't believe you do now. But back then, I will say my first my first group show. It was a pop up show. It was in Dumbo in Brooklyn. I think it's closed now. It's called the Rabbit Hole Gallery, maybe 2016, I believe. So it was like a last minute opportunity that I was invited to by some people I knew at the time, and I was part of the show. And the work that I had, I did have a decent series of drawings on paper, but like a mix of ink and a mixed media of ink, uh, pencil, and charcoal that I had going on at the time. Pretty cool stuff. And I have a decent, like maybe 5 or 6 pieces of those, like good enough for to be on a group show. So that was a cool experience. That was my first experience doing that at all. And but yeah, but then obviously after that I switched it up. I started doing different things, jumping here and there. Then I believe once again like random pop up shows, the works or the mistakes that you make trying to figure out where your work belongs. Start doing those art parties and art competition, and hey, feature your work in this cafe and all that stuff. Things that you learn the hard way. That is a lot of time wasted, time and energy that doesn't lead you anywhere. But yeah, then now recently something that has been more on my mind, having maybe a solo show or maybe a couple of other artists, but maybe like a solo show, even if it's a retrospective of my work. Maybe have a look back, at least of the work that I haven't gotten rid of. And kind of my approach to dealing with the overstock of paintings that I'm kind of like just been sitting there. If they're canvas, I might like roll them up and store them, put them away in my room. Uh, or if it's really things that I don't care to see again or care to anybody to see again, I just cut them up and throw them out. Yeah, it serves everybody any purpose. And not to be morbid, but I also have this idea that I don't want to leave too much clutter. I don't want to leave too much of a footprint when I'm not longer around, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that I know how much of a headache it can be for other people to deal with this with the junk you leave behind. When it comes to art, if it's if it's work that I have stashed away collecting dust and I don't care about it, I wouldn't really expect anyone else to care about it when I'm not, even though, yeah, that's kind of like how it goes, right? Once you're out, then all this stuff is valuable. But I just get rid of stuff. I have countries, so many paintings. Now I try to like be more taking care of the stuff a little bit more, be more a little bit more selective about what I paint, so I don't end up with those piles. But I still have a lot of old drawings. I still have stuff that is not like doesn't take too much space, and some paintings I have rolled up. But well, yeah, that's my approach to that. I'm very practical when it comes to that type of stuff. Some stuff after a while you see it, it's not that good, so just you move on and do other stuff. I guess my advice for new painters or starting if you're starting out, doesn't matter what stage in your life you are, young, middle age, older age, it's all the same. It's I guess stay true to yourself. First, if you intend to like make some art, create, and start expressing yourself, however you want to call it, stay true to yourself. Remove expectations of a perfect piece or a so-called masterpiece. Remove expectations of how you or what you want other people to see. In other words, remove other people's opinion. But before you're able to stay true to yourself, first you have to figure out who you are. And that's when it gets maybe a little complicated to figure out who you are, removing any external factors. Remove yourself from the image you have of yourself. Easier said than done, but I think that's part of the journey. You have to figure out what would you do if you didn't care about anybody else's input. What would you do if you could do whatever you wanted to do creatively? And that's pretty much what you have to like pursue. It is easy to find yourself stuck because you're so used, especially nowadays, you're so used to seeing pretty much the highest level of execution on every single art style possible that you could even imagine. It's available to you, like right in front of you on social media all the time, always. So it's very easy to find yourself trapped because you feel like everything has already been done. Every level has been achieved, but that's like a false sense of what the reality is. But the reality is that you haven't done what you want to do, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something new. It doesn't have to be something that has never been done. It just has to be the thing that you want to do, whatever that is. And I think that's about it. Uh, Maybe don't get caught up on also on people around you, maybe friends, people, relationship or whatever, telling you what it is that you should do or what you're supposed to do with your creativity. Cancel all that noise and just do whatever it is, whatever appetite you have within you. Even if it's a little glimpse of something, even if it's as small as just buying a sketchbook, even if it's as small as just buying some supplies, just start there. Sometimes we have an idea, something comes, you get this flash of creativity, and we have no idea what to do with it. And all we have to do is just like go for it and figure out what it's about. That's all it is. That's what everybody's doing pretty much. And maybe I will add to that. Don't talk to other people about what you want to do as an artist. And we all heard this and we all done this. So, oh, I have this idea and I'm going to do A, B, and C. And that moment that you open your mouth and you said to anyone other than yourself what you intend to do creatively is the moment you're gonna tune out and not do anything about it at all and not do it at all because you suck the air, you suck the energy out of you actually doing it because you already put it out there. But people, oh yeah, that's amazing, but that's great, and you see yourself, you end up not doing it. You end up not doing anything at all because now you like hung up on this thing that you say you will do. So now you want to do something else. Like, oh, but I already said that. I'm gonna look like an idiot. So stop talking about you want to do. Just when you get creative or whatever, uh, just start doing whatever it is you think you want to do. And also another thing that you said when you get creative, creativity is not a constant. It's not something that like you sit down and when it comes to you, then you do creativity. I mentioned before that artwork is made of inspiration and work. Sometimes you don't have any inspiration, but you can actually do some work. You can get a canvas ready. You can start scribbling mindlessly on a sketchbook, and that guarantee it will lead somewhere. Something's gonna come out of it. But you have to like do. Don't talk about it and don't just think about it. Just do stuff, whatever it is. And in doing stuff, you're gonna start like seeing glimpses of who you are, or maybe you are be closer to your mindset and detach yourself from this all these false senses of identity, and I belong to this and I belong to that, and this is my group, and this is my clan, and I belong to this and I belong to that. Like just belong to you, be yourself, follow yourself. Stop trying to like make other people happy. Everybody, you know, can make anybody happy. So do you put in your best effort to make yourself happy by doing following that passion within you that wants to create, that wants to make some art. I think that's what I'm doing. Um, and I believe is what most artists are trying to do. They try to find themselves somehow. They find who they are.